Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With many glitches going around Modern Warfare 2 at the moment, there's been lots of reaction to Clayster admitting during the comeback against the Los Angeles Thieves that he was stair-glitching his opposition and whether this should be allowed or not. Doug Center Martin says absolutely not. In challenges, this would get you forfeited, but in the Pro League, it doesn't seem to matter at all. Very much enjoy to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's dive straight into things. Firstly, with what I talked about earlier today with aBeZy, discussing the solo duo queue 4-stack queues as it stands in ranked play. I would like to see a return to what happened back in Black Ops 2, where if you queued up as a 4-man party, you would play only against other 4-man parties. That's the way it would be, and if you squadded up as a quartet, then you would play against other quartets every single time. If you weren't doing that, then you were in the solo ladder, and you could play with 3 or 2 or 1 or whatever, and it would still kind of consider it to be the same way, but you could make a team in Black Ops 2, you could have your own logo, your own emblem, and it was really cool stuff. Okay, the overall mode probably wasn't quite as good as we have at the moment, actually, especially compared to maybe the World War II overall system, but that part of it I think was better, and there's been an argument to say that if you force like you should get less SR, and you know, some other, well, controversies as well as it stands. Ranked play on the whole is good, but there does need to be some changes, I think, to certain elements of this, and he says that once you get to Crimson or Iridescent, you should only be able to duo queue at a maximum, but if you do want to 4-stack, then you have to play other 4-stacks and get less SR, pretty much like Valorant, he says. So pretty interesting idea. I do think some tweaks of that might be justified as it presently stands. Also from Vegas Legion, before we discuss what happened with Vegas versus Thieves, we've got to mention their control weakness as it stands. And Donnie Temp says remove control. So he's on the train right now of getting rid of control entirely. And look, you can probably understand why a team like Vegas might believe this, but yeah, nonetheless, Temp wants control gone. This has been a question over the last few years. We know that TJ Halley has been a big proponent of capture the flag, bringing that back in place of control. I'm not a massive fan of control. I don't hate it though, just because to me it represents a reasonable middle ground between hardpoint and search and destroy. It's still fast paced enough to make things entertaining, I think, but it's not too, you know, it's not too crazy like hardpoint is. I think it's a decent middle ground there, to be honest, and yeah, it definitely, there is a skill gap involved, but at the same time, it's not the greatest mode. Uplink would be superior, but with no jetpacks, probably not going to happen, and capture the flag is so reliant, I think, on good maps to make it work that largely it's not going to work particularly well. World War II capture the flag was not fun to watch. Every team would just have one man camping in spawn to hold the flag, and you know, wasn't pretty. Might be competitive, but wasn't pretty to watch. Temp wants it gone though, and if it is to be gone, let's just say they decide to remove it for next year's rotation or something. Probably what would happen instead is a third hardpoint would have to come into play, and that's what you know, was discussed here by not necessarily Octane, but Slasher in the replies. It's like, well, okay, if we remove control, then what comes in instead? Do we play a third hardpoint? And in fairness, right, if Expo is viable, we could get up to like 6 hardpoints in the map pool, and therefore cutting that down to 3 actually might make sense. So I wouldn't mind at all to have, you know, it go hardpoint search, hardpoint search. Like, that would be okay as far as I'm concerned. Certainly because the hardpoint map pool right now is actually pretty good. We've got quite a few viable and pretty good to play hardpoint maps, which would be more entertaining to watch and to play probably than control would be. Certainly when you play ranked play, the most fun usually is hardpoint, right? Control is a bit of a bore at times, and some people really love search and destroy and ranked, some people don't. But most people think that hardpoint's the best mode, and I can understand why the pros might think, you know what, like you guys can understand, you guys can figure that out, says Temp. Control is horrible, get it gone and bring something else in instead. And you know, but Slasher reckons right now there's just not enough good hardpoint or search maps to make that viable. If we had 4 good hardpoints, I could see it. Slasher doesn't like Hydro, some people do like Hydro. Expo might be good as well. So, you know, there's a chance I think that this could work. Certainly next year, for example, if Control is still the only viable third game mode, and there is all these new maps in the rotation, and if that actually does happen, and there's like, you know, potentially 10 hardpoint maps that are viable, and they cut it down to a map pool of 6 or 7 hardpoint maps that are potentially playable, then this could be doable. But right now doesn't seem particularly likely, and of course, at the end of the day, not a massive surprise why Vegas are the team kind of, well, yeah, pushing here for Control to be gone. The 1-in-7 records, they lost a Control to Marky B. I mean, that's just how it is. It's pretty tough scenes, but yeah, these were their numbers, and their Control not particularly pretty at all. The other side, though, of course, of this Vegas run to top 6 was their unbelievable victory up against the Los Angeles Thieves. Now, the comms were revealed for this, of course, I mentioned them in yesterday's video, but there's been quite some reaction to this over the last day or so as well, from Temp on stream, from the clip itself, but also from others discussing the situation. Clayster was quite clear during this comeback that when he got that 3-piece, it was, he brought the stair glitch into play. Now, Octane seemed to have used it, maybe accidentally or maybe not, earlier in this game, so I don't think Clayster was unjustified for using it back to them. But Clay was very clear that he did, use this kind of intentionally. It's a glitch, if you guys aren't familiar. If you lay down on a staircase in a certain way, you are practically invisible to the opposition, whereas you can see them clearly, and Clay did that quite effectively. So that's been a question, right? Should he have done this? Should he not have done this? Should this be banned by the CDL? Because there's certainly an argument to say that in challenges, it's not even allowed.
In the moment, and then Clay, you can't blame Clay for this though, dude. Like, Sam did it to him, but like, apparently it wasn't as crazy.
Bro, they still did it, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame this.
Got 3 right here. I'm like, yo, is that scrap? Yo, is that scrap? Yo, what the f*** are you?
I Stair-Glitch the shit out of him. Who gives a glitch the shit out of him? Let's f***ing go, baby. Let's f***ing go, baby. Let's f***ing go, baby. Let's f***ing go, baby. Go, baby. Let's f***ing go, baby. Come on. Oh my god.
Yo, McGee is brain dead. Yo, McGee is actually brain dead, bro.
Bro, I just laid down to watch a cut and I was Stair-Glitching him. Like, I'm not getting up. I'm not getting up. I'm not getting up.
Yo, McGee is actually brain dead, bro. McGee came on the screen. Oh my god!
Did he?
So, of course, fundamentally, this should just be solved by the developers, right? It's a frustrating problem, and it's unclear exactly what staircases allow you to do it and what don't. Some of them do, some of them don't. I think even, like, Thieves might have said that that wasn't, like, a full stair glitch like the others are. For example, on Embassy, that spot in the basketball court or the tennis court, whatever, when you can, like, lay down there in the staircases right at the far right-hand side of the map, like, that's a legit stair glitch. This one might not have been. But Doc reckons in challenges, you straight up forfeit the map instantly if you abuse this. Now, I don't know if there's like a rule in place technically to allow that to be the case, or whether there's more integrity in challenges, and therefore the pros or the challenger players decide, oh, if you did that, like, that's a forfeit, mate, unlucky. I don't exactly know what happened, but in the CDL, there's no penalty. And I must say, it's an interesting observation from Doug that there's been lots of talk about this stair glitch, and in challenges, it's quite clearly shut down upon and not used, but in the CDL, you can pretty much get away with it and nobody cares. It's kind of the same thing about snaking, right? The last couple of years, everyone started to abuse everything to their maximum advantage, snaking included, and, it's not particularly good. And, like, Doug admits, to Clay, like, I don't blame Clay for getting his back on what Octane did earlier on, but it's interesting how this is regulated in challenges and not in the CDL. And you can argue there's many things that should be regulated in the CDL and could be. We mentioned what Hicksy said the other day about the reason why they don't try and shut down the sound EQ kind of abuse online is because they can't fully be sure that players won't just turn it back on themselves. But it's like, there's got to be ways to do this. I know that Slasher has proposed a way that they could do a random PC check every series just to check if the guy's got it on, and if he is, then unlucky, mate, I guess you forfeit the series or something, right, and get banned for a month. I don't know. Might be pretty harsh, but might have to be done, and that's apparently what happens in challenges for this specific case, but the CDL hasn't caught up yet, it seems, to the tier 2 scene. The other thing I wanted to mention here on Clayster was his future as a player. We know that Clayster as an individual is kind of, you'd imagine he's getting to the end of his career. If he competes for another, like, 15 years, like, it's probably doubtful, right? So I thought Clay might retire in the off-season. There was discussions that he might go out with Crimsix because Clay had some family issues, I believe, was the situation, and he was in discussions with Boston to join them, and then they went for Zinni instead, and therefore Clayster, his opportunities with Vegas looked like they might be drying up because he was kind of hoping for the Boston thing. That didn't happen. Then he was AFK for a while, and it kind of made a pretty difficult situation for Clay. In the end, though, he got the Vegas spot, and he's done so much with that spot so far. I mean, we saw the numbers right from stage 3. He was their best player this stage. His Search and Destroy was 99 overall. There's no doubt about it, and that was crucial to their record this stage. Obviously, he's 2 real. Okay, his stats might not be incredible, but I do feel like Clay's got more out of 2 real than the previous situation. Like when Tua was on Florida, he was way less impactful than he is now under Clayster's leadership. So, you know, there's elements there of Clayster where he's still incredibly impactful, and I do believe he can improve other teams in the league. Where he's taken Legion as an organization from to actually being a team that people want to do well. Like, Legion were just a straight up meme over the last few years. No one was, okay, there was some Paris Legion fans, and I respect you if you're a hardcore Paris Legion fan, but the majority of Legion fans today, or the reason why Legion has, you know, at the event, OpTic are going to be the favourite team, and outside of the home team, the other team people want to win is Legion right now, and largely that's due to Clayster. They've got a nice story, they want Clay to do well, and individually he's done a lot of things, not just performance-wise in terms of his actual gameplay that's been pretty good overall this season as an AR, but he's also done things for the franchise outside of that to make them, you know, make him an interesting franchise to follow. So could Clayster go elsewhere? Because ideally for Clay, he might retire after this season. He might do. It might not work out in the last couple of months. But I've got to say, this tweet was interesting. You know, I'm messing with the vision. Thanks for the count at nade shots. Sent him some juvie over. And you guys might remember, I think it was this offseason, maybe last offseason, where Clay was spotted in a 100 Thieves shirt. And we thought, oh, you know, is Clay going to join 100T or something? And that never happens. But I do wonder if there's part of Clay that thinks, you know what, here, I'm doing well on Vegas. I'm playing well individually. If he can maintain that for the rest of the season at the moment, like, is there a chance that another organization picks Clay up? I think there's a few teams that are better than Legion, that have more resources than Legion, that could certainly improve from Clay. Of course, the issue picking up Clay is you never fully know whether it's going to be his last year or whether he can commit to a couple more years, or whether individually he's not going to be quite as consistent as he has been, let's say, in the past. But in terms of what he can do for a team, I think he would be a valuable asset to teams better with more money and more talent than Legion, and I wonder if Clay's thinking along the same lines at the moment, because he probably doesn't want to spend another season on Vegas, right? He'll probably try and get on a better team this offseason if he can, and I think there should be opportunities for him out there, I would argue, and well, hopefully Clay doesn't have to go through what Crimsix had to deal with, where every bridge was burned, and therefore he actually couldn't get a spot really in the league, even if he wanted to, and therefore was almost forced into retirement at the end of the day. Hopefully that won't be the case for Clay and can kind of do things on his own terms. Thought it was like, I don't know, Doug and Crim are just, these guys are cut from a very interesting cloth, let's just say. And Crim was texting him last night, you'll never get a ring if your goal is to ring it, make it higher than that. Like, you know, I don't even know. Crim's trying to like gas up Doug here to go all the way to the top, so hopefully it happens. But at the moment I start focusing on 40, I just lost the rest of the year. So pretty interesting actually that it went to, I guess he means 40 championships, right? And whenever he started thinking about that, then it would go downhill. So pretty interesting. Maybe that's actually quite wise advice there from Crim6, although kind of difficult to say what advice from Crim is good and what advice is absolutely terrible. A couple of interesting stats to close out the video here. OpTic Intel points out that Formal in his career had 6, out of all the events he played, 6 of them he went negative in. 3 of them were the online events in Modern Warfare 2019, so they can be disregarded to a certain degree. And the other 3 were precisely 0.99 KDs. Maybe Formal's a bit frustrated with this in a way, right? Because if I was Formal and I had, you know, my only 3 LAN event negative were 0.9, I'd think, damn, if I could have just got a 1.0, I'd have never gone at negative ever. But it's still quite impressive. And even this I thought was pretty remarkable from Brian's house. I think that Ronnie at CDL Intel's got to take notes from this one, because he went back and found an old OpTic versus Leverage team scrim from the Modern Warfare 3 days and looked at the final scoreboards. These were the teams of Scump, Merc, Big T, Rambo versus Aches, TP, Striker, and Mutation. Wow, what a time. And Scump had a 1.17, Merc had a 1.21. Always feel like Merc, whenever I used to watch him, was, you know, way more underrated than I think he gets credit for. Individually, he was, I think, very talented and really had a high individual peak, and doesn't get enough credit, I think, Merc, from his actual achievements in Call of Duty. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into one scrim scoreboard from well over a decade ago, but very much interested your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Put the motherfucking arms down, baby.
He flexed?
Yeah. It was a weak flex, though. That was a weak flex,
That shows lack of confidence, though.
That was lack of confidence in that flex. That confidence was weak,
That was weak as
He normally holds that big.
Big ass smile on his face.
Nah, he got new teeth. Like, I gotta tip that.
I'll be smiling every half second.
Yo, guy, he thinks everything's funny.